Welcome into the 1011 Now Alert Center. I'm Danielle Shenk alongside Darsha Dodge, and we're going to be breaking down some unofficial primary election results after voters in Lincoln and Lancaster County had quite a bit on their ballots today.
Yeah, today is the primary election. This races determine who moves on to the November general election. Now, in partisan races, the top candidate from each party is the one who will advance. And the nonpartisan races, it is the top two, regardless of their quote-unquote affiliation. We're looking at some primary numbers that are coming out of Lancaster County. Those dropped at the top of the hour at 8 o'clock. Now, these are early voting ballots that were received by May 9th. The Lancaster County Commissioner saying they mailed out almost 36,000 of those. They got 27,000 of those
quite a bit back.
It's a lot of counting, and they have released some of those results. AP calling some of these races already right at the top of the hour. I mean, we are 15 minutes off the top of the hour, and we have some results already in for you.
Yes, and so throughout tonight, you can just hang out with us. Although we are in blazers, it'll be pretty laid back here tonight.
It's pretty cool.
We're going to be chatting about these races as we go through them, and we'll be talking campaign finances, the bond issues, giving a deeper breakdown of that, and just some of the big races, and then a look at what's next. So we'll kind of start at the top of the ticket, going back to this one in the Republican race. The AP already calling Pete Ricketts' race the incumbent, so he will be moving on to face the Democratic challenger, Cindy Burbank.
Yeah, if you remember, Pete Ricketts, appointed by Governor Pillen in 2023 to replace Ben Sass. He was elected in 2024 to finish that term, so this, if elected in November, would be his first full 6-year term as a senator for Nebraska.
And so Legal Marijuana Now also has a race, but we don't unfortunately have the graphics for that. So we'll be moving on to District 1 in the House of Representatives. Incumbent Mike Flood is running unopposed on the Republican ballot, while Democrats deciding between these two right here, and they've already called it for Chris Bachmeyer.
They have Chris Bachmeyer as a former U.S. State Department diplomat to the Middle East. He's running against Eric Moyer here, solar developer from Lincoln. Bachmeyer had outraised Moyer pretty good, but Moyer had some local support from the State Democratic Party, so that was an interesting race to see. The AP, as you can tell, already calling that race with more than 14,000 votes for Bachmeyer.
And feel free to move that. I have it kind of the
laptop
there.
Tripping over here with my giant feet, so.
Yeah, now moving on to District 2.
Oh, what a race. What a race. Actually drawing national attention for District 2. This was the seat that was vacated by Don Bacon, who chose not to run for re-election in this seat. This District 2 encompasses so much of the Omaha area, Douglas, Sarpy County area, the traditional blue dot that we keep hearing about. AP hasn't called anything yet. We're looking at some pretty close numbers here between John Kavanaugh and Denise Powell, which we were expecting it to be close. There's been a lot of infighting between these two campaigns, some allegations of dark money, which we'll break down later for you. But still waiting to see these results as they come in. The next set of results, which are from Election Day, will drop at 9:15, so we'll have better updates for you then.
Yeah, absolutely. And so John Kavanaugh might be a familiar name for some of you who follow the legislature pretty closely. He's from Omaha's District 9.
He is.
And then we'll go to the U.S. House District 3 here. Adrian Smith versus David Huebner. Pretty close here.
Pretty close. Adrian Smith has been in Congress representing Nebraska since 2006. If you remember, Tom Osborne gave up that seat to run for governor. Smith has been elected to this seat ever since. Congressional District 3 represents a lot of rural Nebraska areas, so this race expected to be fairly close, but I think Flood looks like he's pulling ahead a little bit there, so we will see when Smith, is pulling ahead a little bit here, so we'll see at the top of the next hour what those numbers look like.
And the governor's race, one of the busiest on today's ballot.
So many candidates on this list.
Have 6 running, but only the top 4 are going to show here on this ballot here, or on this touchboard graphic, with the AP already calling it for incumbent Jim Pillen.
This would be Governor Jim Pillen's second and final term. He was elected, assumed office in January of 2023. His Republican counterparts, most of them hadn't raised anywhere near what Governor Pillen had. Len Waltz, actually the first Democrat to outraise a Republican incumbent since 2010 for governor, which we can break down all of that later. But Governor Pillen almost $10 million in the war chest, and it looks like within a few minutes the AP was already able to call that. His biggest challenger, which we were all anticipating here, is Len Waltz on the Democratic ticket. She was running against Larry Marvin, also of Fremont. Marvin, a former U.S. Air Force veteran and former teacher. Lynn Wallace, of course, served a couple terms in the legislature there.
And again, these are just preliminary results, the first batch that has dropped here tonight. If you're just joining us on our stream, whether that's on our website, our app, TikTok, or Facebook, we're glad to have you, and shoot any questions you have our way as we continue to cover this throughout tonight until our 10 o'clock show.
Absolutely.
So moving on to some of the state races here, we're taking a look at the Secretary of State with incumbent Bob Evden up for re-election here.
Yeah, Bob Evden's been Secretary of State since 2019. Before that, he was on the State Board of Ed for several years. His biggest challenger, Republican Scott Peterson. This has been an interesting race. It's kind of a litmus test to see where Republicans are standing on election security. Bob Evden made that statewide integrity tour, which we brought you the results of. He went in and inspected voting machines and got to see them in action, and has repeatedly said Nebraska's elections are the gold standard, a fair and free election. Scott Peterson kind of on the opposite side of that. He's been drawing a lot of attention. He was the gentleman, if you read our colleagues over at the Nebraska Examiner, reported that he's the one that got the Trump banner back up on the Red Barn there on Interstate 80. He's been pretty outspoken, vocal, pretty active on social media as well. So this is an interesting one to watch. As you can tell, it's very close. Evden has staved off some challengers in previous elections. This one may be a tight one, and we will be bringing you all the details as we go forward tonight.
Yes, and he has two Democratic challengers, and it's already been called for Sarah Slattery.
It is. Yeah, Sarah Slattery is from Plattsmouth. She's a small business owner, a professional chef. Came out pretty early on the Democratic ticket, and within 20 minutes it was already called by the AP for Slattery. So she will face off against whoever wins, Evden or Peterson, in the November election.
Now moving on to state legislature, we'll start with District 28 here. Patty Pansing-Brooks looking to get back into it after serving for almost a decade from 2015 to 2022. Took a little break to run for Congress, and now she's back at it.
She's back. We have a lot more from Patty Pansing-Brooks, all these other candidates on our website. We have a pretty comprehensive voter's guide for you, so make sure you check that out. And again, we'll keep updating these. If you have questions about these candidates, about these races, about the numbers, please drop them in the comments, email us, call us, TikTok us, I don't know.
Yeah, all of the things.
All of the things. We're very easy to find.
Yes, and District 41, this has been a popular topic, District 41.
Popular is the word. If you remember here a few months ago, you were watching me up at the Capitol. This took a lot of oxygen out of the beginning of this last legislative session. District 41 was the district seat previously held by Dan McEwen of Amherst. McEwen, after several months of controversy, resigned from his District 41 seat. He was cited by the Nebraska State Patrol last October for public indecency for allegedly groping a female staffer at a Sine Die party last spring. Later, he pled no contest to disturbing the peace. That's a misdemeanor as well. He then changed his plea to not guilty. They're still in the middle of litigating this, but as last update, McEwen had resigned from his seat. He's in a diversion program and is due back in court in August.
And Pillen had appointed Fred Meyer, who was previously in that seat before McEwen.
It was a very full circle moment.
He is now looking for someone to take his place once again after the controversy there, hoping to finish out the rest of McKeon's term.
And not the only special election that we're following, so we'll have results and we'll be able to break down those special races for you later as well.
And now we'll move on to the Nebraska Board of Regents in District 1. This one not been called yet, but pretty close between Comstock and Hochheim.
Yeah, we've been watching all of these. There's several of these Board of Regents seats up. We'll have more details as these results get closer.
Yeah, they're looking for a new face here in District 1 as incumbent Regent Tim Clare retires from this position. And then in District 5 for the State Board of Education, it's between 3 women.
Yeah.
Pretty close yet, still
nothing to call. See, we're watching these, we're seeing these numbers pop up as you're seeing them, so we don't have any insider information. We are simply seeing the results as you see them, so like I said, we're going to be pretty off the cuff here, so bear with us.
We've kind of started big picture and now built ourselves
narrowing
down
in a little bit here.
Smaller, we're getting into the county races now. County commissioner here. So
Matt Schulte, the incumbent in that seat. Looks like he's leading pretty good there. That race still not called by the AP.
Then to the county assessor, an incumbent running once again.
It is, yeah. A little bit closer than the Schulte seat, but still Dan Nolte leading with about 60% of the votes.
And for public defender, incumbent also looking
also extremely close here. Christy Yeager and Sarah Newell. We'll be watching that one closely as results drop at 9:15. We'll have some better updates for you.
And now for district court clerk, these races, with the assessor, the public defender, and the district court clerk, these are all Democratic races because no one has challenged them on the Republican side.
Correct.
How that goes. So again, court clerk here, wider gap than the other couple of races.
And it looks like the incumbent actually is behind so far in this, so that again will be another one that we're watching. Simon Rezak's challenger, Kristen Anderson, leading with 70% of the vote. That'll be an interesting one.
And now, in addition to these candidate races, some voters also weighing major school bond issues, including in Waverly and Norris. And so we'll start with the Norris School District here.
Wow. Yeah.
Just getting in some numbers for that one. Norris School District residents voting on a $34.8 million 20-year bond issue aimed at upgrading aging infrastructure, bringing school buildings up to current safety standards and things like that. Yeah,
similar issues up in Waverly. Both of these districts have tried to pass bonds in the last few years. Neither of those have been successful. The Waverly bond especially, they had reduced their ask quite a bit. We'll take a look at those results and see where we're at. Again, these have not been called yet. Waverly, we're looking at, against a little bit higher than 4. We will see how this pans out. It's only been a couple of years since Waverly tried this. It was a $90 million bond ask. They reduced that by about $20 million.
Yeah, and so Norris had asked, I think, back in
2017,
but they were only asking for $10 million at that point. You ran the story today?
I did. I'm going to grab my notes here while we're talking.
We talked to the superintendents, 1011 News did. I think we sent a couple of reporters out there to get their thoughts ahead of these bond issues as they hope to upgrade their schools. What was the overall consensus?
Yeah, there's a lot of similarities in here. We're talking about aging HVAC systems, right? We're talking about school security in an era where bomb threats and school shootings and swatting calls and things like that have been pervasive across the nation and even across Nebraska in the last few weeks. Both of these districts looking to upgrade their security, move their offices in school buildings to the front instead of in the middle so that there was controlled entrance. In Waverly, they're looking at expanding a lot of their career and technical education programs. There's millions and millions of dollars in ask for that. In Norris, they have issues with ADA accessible bathrooms. There's only one at their high school building, so those are things that by law have to be provided. Both of their superintendents saying, hey, if we don't do this now, it only gets more expensive. So interesting races to watch. We'll see how that pans out.
Yeah, and so we'll chat more about these bond issues here as we're continuing to stream this afternoon. But while the biggest attention may be on the statewide races, there is plenty down the ballot that could have direct local impact. So it'll be a little bit yet until we get a new batch of results dropping. So we're going to take a little break here to chat about some campaign finances. So stick with us as we get ready to take a little break and get set up here. All right, welcome back. And if you're just joining this stream, we broke down the first batch of unofficial election results here from the primary tonight as early voting ballots received Saturday, May 9th. There's about 27,000 or so that
you can see I just figured out where my mic goes, so apologies there. If you missed at the top of the hour, we broke down those election results. We also mentioned that this is pretty laid back. If you have questions, make sure you're reaching out.
Yeah, I have Facebook, our Facebook Live pulled up, our TikTok Live pulled up. So I can see those better now. So if you do have a question, feel free to send us a chat.
Perfect. Well, some of the bigger things campaign finance wise that we've been looking at for the April reporting period, Lynn Waltz actually outraised Governor Pillen pretty significantly. Although Pillen has more than $9 million in his campaign war chest, that is, however, the first time that a Democrat has outraised a Republican for governor since 2010. If you remember back in 2010, it was Democrat Mark Lakers who was challenging Republican incumbent Dave Heineman. Lakers later dropped out. He pled guilty to some misdemeanors for falsifying campaign pledges, but still, it has been a long time since a Democrat has outraised a Republican. When I talked to Lynn Waltz earlier this week, she mentioned that this is very exciting and we have all this support. Governor Pillen, I kind of asked him a similar question. Didn't seem very concerned when you look at the campaign finance breakdown. Pillen has a lot of money in his war chest, and they'll be holding that through November. So.
Yeah, so a big races to be watching there. We'll put ourselves in a triple box here so you can still cycle through the results as we're talking.
Absolutely, and if you missed it, the top two candidates in a nonpartisan race move on. In a partisan race, like the governor's race, that is the top candidate from each party. The AP, when results dropped at 8 o'clock tonight, that has already called those races for Jim Pillen and for Lynn Waltz. So those two will face off on November 3rd in the general election.
Absolutely. So any other big race campaign finance? I know that this has been something that you've been looking into for the past couple of months.
You know what? And we got to shout out our friends and colleagues over at the Nebraska Examiner and Nebraska Public Media. They do incredible breakdowns of this campaign finance as well. One of the other races that we're looking at, obviously we're looking at Congressional District 2. There were some dark money allegations there between John Kavanaugh and Denise Powell. Kavanaugh's campaign had accused Powell of taking some pro-Israel PAC money. Powell's campaign has kind of famously come out and said if John Kavanaugh is elected to this seat, that would potentially cause a Republican supermajority in the officially nonpartisan Nebraska legislature. So Kavanaugh has said he is confident that Democrats can pick up enough seats to offset that. All of this remains to be seen. Those races have not been called yet, although we sort of anticipated the Powell and Kavanaugh races would be close, and so far they have been. Those results should be popping up on your screen any moment.
Yes,
when we're talking about,
we'll go to that one.
Oh, you can
specifically.
She is so good at this. If you're wondering how anything looks amazing, it is not because I am touching it. I assure you. There were other dark money allegations of the Dan Osborne campaign. He is the independent candidate who likely will be also on the ballot in November, challenging Pete Ricketts for Senate.
So we'll keep it parked on this one right here.
Osborne is not on your ballot because he is an independent. He has to get enough signatures by the beginning of August to be on that ballot. We will talk about his campaign finance.
And so you might have mentioned this, but as there's a lot of moving pieces over
You're doing
here,
a ton.
You can imagine.
You're doing a ton. I have the easy
job.
job.
There was a little bit of controversy between these two, Denise Powell and John Kavanaugh. Some saying that Kavanaugh was maybe at what was the controversy there? I think there was just a little confusion amongst the Democratic Party as to who their kind of front runner is for this.
Yeah, so it's interesting if you take a look. Denise Powell, small business owner, she co-founded the Women Who Run PAC. John Kavanaugh, law school, represents District 9 in the legislature. These two have had, you could say, a fairly aggressive ad strategy kind of on both sides. So John Kavanaugh his campaign has accused Denise Powell's campaign of accepting pro-Israel PAC money and not disclosing that. Powell says that's not true. Powell says if Kavanaugh is elected to Congress, then that's going to set Republicans in the state legislature up for a supermajority. Worth noting that Nebraska's unicameral is officially nonpartisan. However, as with many nonpartisan things, it does not shake out that way. The Republicans need 33 seats for a supermajority. Progressives right now, I believe, are setting at 17. And actually, if you're watching Legislative District 12 with Republican Merv Reapy, he's kind of been the Republican, but often kind of swing vote in there. When all the transgender legislation was coming down in the last session, he was that deciding no vote against Kathleen Kauss. Some of Kathleen Kauss' provisions. LB 89 eventually got pulled out. That's the Stand With Women Act, which was girls in sports. Merv Reapy also up for re-election in District 12. That's another race that we're watching pretty tightly.
Yeah, absolutely. And so again, these results that you're seeing here now, if you're just joining us on our stream, whether that's on our website, our app, on TikTok or Facebook, these are the first preliminary results, a batch coming through from the early votes that the Lancaster County Commission has been able to sift through and take a look here. And so we've been chatting about District 2 here and the tight race between John Kavanaugh and Denise Powell, even though this is not technically Lincoln's district, but still one
very interesting. National attention.
To the blue dot, it's always going to grab the attention.
And not also worth noting as well. So our friends over the Examiner, Zach Wendling, who we had on when we did our Lunch and Legislature earlier this year, I thought this was super fascinating, and I wanted to make sure you all know it. Between January 1st and April 27th, across 61 legislative candidates, campaigns raised more than $4 million. That's pretty significant when you consider that if you work as a senator, if you are elected and you are in the legislature, I believe the yearly rate's like $12,000 a year. So that's a lot of money for a race, for a job that doesn't really pay that much. And probably the most expensive race I think we're looking at so far is District 4. Incumbent Brad Von Gillern is facing off against progressive challenger in Cindy Maxwell Oschek. I never say that right. Cindy, if you're watching, I'm so sorry. Together, they raised nearly $386,000. They spent more than $300,000 in this race. Interesting to see how that moves on.
Yes, and as you had mentioned too throughout this, we were just covering some of the district races that you won't see Dan Osborne on this, even though he's trying to vie for Senator Pete Ricketts' seat. He is looking to get on the ballot for November for that Senate seat.
Yeah, there's a couple other races that we're watching. Other expensive races like we just mentioned, District 12, which is kind of the Ralston area. Merv Reapy holds that seat now. Interestingly enough, this is the only seat that is held by a Republican that Donald Trump did not win in 2024. So his seat is kind of a true swing seat. Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see how that goes. He does have 3 challengers. That's Christy Noor, Thomas Kastrup, and there's a write-in and Robin Richards. She is not on the ballot because the check that she wrote to pay that entrance fee, I can't remember what they call it. That's on me. It actually bounced, unfortunately. So she is a write-in candidate for that. But she surpassed Reapy in fundraising by almost $20,000. So pretty significant race that we're watching there. And when you're looking at somebody like a Merv Reapy, who is often that kind of progressive or Republican, depending on what you're voting on, he's kind of that swing vote in the legislature. So they're going to be interested to see how that pans out.
And remind those who are watching how often state legislators are reelected or what their terms are.
Yeah.
Their terms are.
So
I know there's a lot of different races and things.
I'm usually in bed by 9 o'clock, so we're working through that.
Are there any other races, campaign finance wise, that have kind of stuck out to you?
Too crazy that we're watching. I think an interesting one is District 26, which you won't see results for in this. The AP won't provide results to a race if both of those candidates will move on. So George Dungan of District 26, he has a challenger in Tobias Howard. Since there's the top 2 candidates in a nonpartisan race move on, those 2 go on regardless of what happens tonight. So the AP doesn't provide results for those.
And so because computers are right in front of us, I looked it up. It's 2 consecutive 4-year terms. So 8 years in total is how long they can serve. That's what Patty Pansing Brooks did.
And you can take time off and try to run back. So it's consecutive terms.
And so,
I promise I'm awake.
Without any more campaign finances to break down, we'll kind of start at the top of the ticket of these results.
Absolutely.
For anyone that's kind of just joining us, I know the next batch won't be out here for another 30 minutes, but we're on this stream and
there's some interesting numbers as we get into that. There's 125 candidates that are looking to move forward to November 3rd. Only 83 of those are going to advance. So that if you like numbers, I won't say that I like numbers, but I find that fascinating.
Yeah.
There's more than 36 statewide races on this ballot right now. So very busy night.
Yes, and so we'll take this full screen so you don't have to see our faces as we're chatting here. Give ourselves a little break here. We'll take that off. So here is what we have at the top of the ticket here so far. Pete Ricketts, it's already been called for him in the Senate race, the Republican Senate race. He got 79% of the vote.
Yep, he was appointed by Governor Pillen in 2023 to fill Ben Sass's seat, elected in 2024 to finish that term out. So if he is elected this fall, it will be his first full 6-year term.
Yes, good insight there. And then for the Democratic side of this U.S. Senate race, Cindy Burbank getting 90% of the vote, and AP already calling that for her as well.
Yeah, she's from Omaha, self-employed pharmacy financial counselor. We have to mention again, if you're checking out voter guides, we have one on our website. Nebraska Examiner has a great one as well. Big shout out to our friends over there for a lot of the work that they've done in helping us compile these guides.
Mm-hmm. And so moving on to the U.S. House of Representatives, we have District 1. This is the Democratic race because no one is challenging incumbent Mike Flood on the Republican
For the Republican side. Yeah, he was elected in June of 2022. There was a special election there to replace Jeff Fortenberry. That's how Flood came into the seat. He has a couple of challengers. That race has been called for Chris Bachmeier. Bachmeier is a former U.S. State Department diplomat, worked in the Middle East as well. I promise I can read. I won't even say it's my handwriting because all of these are typed. Yeah, so he worked with the State Department for a long time. Eric Moyer from Lincoln, solar developer and installer. Both of those guys ran a pretty tight campaign as well. Moyer had more of the support from the Nebraska Democratic Party. I think they had actually donated some to his campaign. Bachmeier clearly dominating there with more than 14,000 votes, more than 62%.
So did the Democratic primary back Moyer? Because sometimes they'll come out and say
sometimes they will. When we're just talking about campaign finance, I believe the last time I checked, it was just a donation from the...
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And moving on to District 2 for the Democratic
The fascinating District 2 race that we're watching. Seat left open by Don Bacon. Look at those numbers there. Kavanaugh and Denise Powell, of course, as close as we had expected them to. If you're looking at those other two names down there and you're wanting to know who those people are, Crystal Rhodes, Douglas County District Court Clerk. She was previously on the Public Service Commission as well. Kishla Askins is an emergency medicine physician's assistant. She was in the U.S. Navy. Denise Powell outraised every other candidate, including Brinker Harding on the Republican side for this seat. John Kavanaugh, a name many recognize, the legislator for District 9.
Mm-hmm. And so Harding was the only one running on the Republican
Harding is the only one running on the Republican side for that. Don Bacon served 5 terms in this seat. He defeated the Democrat incumbent Brad Ashford for this seat in 2016. So when we're talking about a blue dot seat, especially in a year when at the national level, you have national level Democrats looking at who's going to take control of the House next year. This, not the deciding race, but if you're looking at it on a national level, every seat matters.
Yes, and so only a 3% difference here between John Kavanaugh and Denise Powell. This is definitely a race that we have circled on our list to keep checking back at.
Absolutely. And, just talk a little bit about Don Bacon. His record, 2 standalone bills enacted into law, 33 enacted through the National Defense Authorization Act. He's been a champion and advocate for Offutt Air Force Base. He was in the Air Force for 3 decades. He's championed a lot of farm bill legislation, especially ag land security, brought in millions in funding for Epley Airfield. So 5 terms there, leaving that seat open. This has been a contested race since the day that Bacon announced he wasn't running.
And there are 6 Democrats actually running, but our graphic can only show the top 4. And there's a Libertarian running in this race as well, Eric Foreman. And so, talk about who's moving forward when it comes to partisan races versus nonpartisan races.
Yeah, in a partisan race, it is the top candidate from each party. So whoever is the top candidate for the Democrats, whoever is the top candidate for the Libertarian, obviously that is going to be Eric Foreman. The top candidate for the Republican right now, unchallenged, Brinker Harding. There is some, that was my pen. There is some discussion around Kavanaugh, like we've talked about, being elected. There's some of his former colleagues in the legislature have talked about this, what that means for a Republican supermajority. We can break all of that down later, because if I have to say Republican supermajority again, I think I'm going to get it wrong. But yes, so Brinker Harding, Eric Foreman, they will face off against whoever wins for the Democratic ticket.
Okay, and now in District 3, this is the Republican race out there covering most of western rural Nebraska.
Very rural.
I would have to say this is almost shocking that Adrian Smith hasn't been called.
It is
away,
interesting.
I feel like he usually is called. It's the AP usually calls it for him right out of the gate.
Yeah, and we had several, like, the Pete Ricketts, the Jim Pillen, the Lynn Waltz. Those were called right off the bat. Hubner has drawn some pretty close numbers here.
But this also could be maybe because there's only 15% of the vote.
There is, again, these are early voting ballots that were mailed out and received by last Saturday. So Adrian Smith elected in 2006 after Tom Osborne gave up his seat to run for governor. David Hubner, he's from North Platte. He's a cattleman. He's a restaurant owner. He formerly worked for the Border Patrol. There were two others in this race: Democrat Becky Stilley from South Sioux City, and the Legal Marijuana Now Party's David Else from Overton.
And so moving on to the governor races, this one
another busy one.
Another busy race.
Another busy one.
Been called for both sides.
It has. I don't know that anybody was particularly shocked by these numbers. Just historically defeating an incumbent is incredibly difficult. That's not surprising. That is the same in so many races. If elected in November, that will be Governor Pillen's second and final 4-year term. A couple Democrats in there. Again, that's been called for Lynn Waltz. He had several other Republican challengers as well.
Just a reminder, John Walls and Lynn Walls do not have any relation. So
John Walls of Hastings, Lynn Walls of
same last name. So 92% of the vote going towards Lynn Walls there.
And that other an interesting note, the name J.C. Todd might look familiar when you're looking through those results. He's from York. He was cited a couple months ago, last month, the month before, I don't even remember what month it is now, for official misconduct on the medical marijuana petitions. That has been one that the Attorney General and the governor have both pushed back against.
And so he would be on this graphic if he was in the top 4, but he's not. Moving on to the Secretary of State on the Republican side. This is still a close one,
race.
And I think Scott Peterson has overtaken Bob Evnen.
This is
since
actually
the last time we looked.
This is actually super interesting. So, again, Bob Evnen has been in this seat and has fended off other challengers for this race. This year, I think it's very interesting to look at because it's kind of a litmus test for how you feel about election security, how Republicans are feeling about election security. And looky there, with 50% of the vote, he's leading the incumbent just a little bit here. Bob Evden's been Secretary of State since 2019. He was on the State Board of Ed before that. Scott Peterson is from Omaha. He's retired. He has his bachelor's in accounting. The next set of results drops here at 9:15, so we will have better announcements for you.
Yes.
By then, but this is super interesting to watch. Bob Evnen, over the last few weeks, has made this kind of statewide election integrity tour. He was here in Lancaster County. We got to go in and look at these voting machines with him. He has repeatedly called Nebraska's elections the gold standard. But Omaha businessman Scott Peterson has repeatedly criticized Evnen for not doing enough to secure states' elections, talking about use of technology, saying it could be tampered with. Now, we were sitting there as Lancaster County Commissioner Todd Wilgen talked about election security. These machines don't even connect to the internet. They can't. They talk about all these steps that we go through. We have all of that breakdown on our website. I won't rehash all of it here for you now. But it's fascinating. We have really good video of it, so you can get a look at what these machines look like. But they have repeatedly called Nebraska's elections the gold standard. Just repeatedly.
Do you think that's because technology is maybe a little behind here? sometimes it almost makes you think, because there was a lot of controversy with having Starlink connected to maybe some of these ballots and things back in the general election. But
Peterson has said multiple times that these machines could be hacked if they connect to the internet. Todd Wilchin, again, the Lancaster County Commissioner, has shown us and said these machines do not connect the internet. A computer is actually used to upload election results, and it's done via flash drive. Now, I got to watch this happen, and it was kind of wild. So we're standing around. It's tangential. I love to talk. Can you tell? We're standing around watching Todd Wilchin try to log into this computer to upload the election results. And because the time changed in March, he had to actually call the company that manages this and have them help him reset the time so that the times matched. And if that doesn't tell you that those computers are not connected to the internet, I don't know. I don't know if I could change the time on a computer. And I'm only 31, so props to all of them for doing that. But Peterson has repeatedly said we should be hand counting all of the races. We should be restricting vote by mail, which is not something that Evnen has agreed with. Evnen has said, I believe I won't say his exact words, but what he said was the vast majority of people who vote by mail in Nebraska are Republicans. So we're not restricting vote by mail. And I've asked Todd Wilchin about this multiple times. And he has said the cost to get rid of early voting or mail-in voting would be incredible.
And, going back to 2020, we found out how important it is to still have that option, considering, there's illnesses going around,
little collective
virus
PTSD
going around. It might be a good idea to be able to still have that option, and especially for those who might be disabled and not able to move around and get out there to go vote. Some discussion to be had about that.
But it is interesting. I mean, we are watching these numbers are going up, as you can see on your screen right now. Not the first time that Bob Evnen has had a challenger. He had challengers in 2022.
Do you remember how close that race was?
I want to say that together his challengers had more than half of the votes. Evnen obviously had more. Saved that. Both of those, I was not in Nebraska at the time. I worked in South Dakota at the time, but a lot of similar elections around that time in Evnen's as well. His challengers had repeatedly said that Trump lost the election because of voter fraud, widespread claims which have been disproven.
And now this Republican side of the Secretary of State still up for grabs, but the Democratic side
has certainly been called by Sarah Slattery, and I apologize because my notes are incomplete right here. My goodness.
What were you going to add?
Oh, there it goes. Is it my brain? Who knows? Perfect. Sarah Slattery, she's from Plattsmouth. Professional chef, small business owner. She's been on the library board, the bridge board. Taking more than 90% of the vote there. So whoever is called for the Republican side, which will be a really interesting one to watch. If you've been following this race on social media, Bob Evnen and Scott Peterson's side. Scott Peterson is the one who helped get the Trump banner back up on that red barn off of Interstate 80, which was a big deal. It was all over social media when that came down. So,
did they discover that it was the wind that took it off?
I couldn't even tell you. I've slept at least one time since then. Probably not more than once, but at least.
Isn't it funny? Some of the things that catch fire on social media.
It really is like everybody sees that barn, and
on the way, and so
it'll be interesting to see.
Now we'll take our faces off here once again, since we're gonna try to get through more of these races. We'll get to the state legislature, District 28. Who's in that one?
Pulling up District 28.
Patty Pansing Brooks looking to get back to it. We've mentioned it a couple of times here tonight that she served for this district back from 2015 to 2022. 23, okay. And so nearly a decade.
Yeah, spent a lot of time. She ran for Congress in 2022, registered Democrat.
So that race still hasn't been called in.
But looks like she's pulling pretty far ahead there. Again, we're waiting on the next set of election results to come up at 9.
And it looks about 40% of the votes are in for this one. And with considering all of these numbers, I'm not good at math. It seems like she's got a.
I am
a
not
pretty
the
good
one to
lead,
ask math
likely
questions. That is
gonna. There's a reason we're in this field.
I majored in history for anybody curious.
And in District 41, we said it at the top of our stream, but if you're just joining us, District 41 has had a lot of publicity
District
lately.
41 has been interesting. So if you watched our coverage back at the beginning of the legislative session in January, a lot of the oxygen was taken up in that session by Dan McCune of Amherst. So Dan McCune sat in that seat. District 41, if you're unfamiliar, it's in central Nebraska. Boone, Greeley, Howard, Sherman Valley, and Wheeler counties. There's parts of Buffalo and Hall counties. So Dan McCune resigned from the unicameral January 13th. The day before, and we were there for this as well, the unicameral's executive board had voted to send articles of expulsion to the full floor. McCune was cited in October for public indecency for allegedly groping a female staffer at the Sine Die party. That was last spring. He fought back against this kind of publicly. His attorney did as well. Then when charges were brought in Lancaster County Court, it was a misdemeanor for disturbing the peace. He pled no contest, which a no contest plea, if you're not familiar, is I'm not admitting guilt, but I'm admitting that there is enough evidence where one could find me at fault for this. So he pleads no contest. He later changes that to not guilty. He holds this big press conference out in Cairo. I said it right. I'm learning. I'm learning. A lot of you called in when I said Papillon a few months ago. It's Papillion. I have learned. I am learning.
Hey, we're human too.
Bless. Oh my goodness, bless. So, all of that to say that he stepped down. The executive board had said there was this pattern of conduct. Mm-hmm. Other senators that we talked to said, we can handle peer-to-peer joking, but when you're bringing in staffers, people that are not on the same level, they don't know your intent behind that. We won't go into the details of the things that he said, but made some maybe off-color jokes that you might not make to someone that you're not super familiar with. He resigned. The day after he resigned, Governor Pillen appointed Fred Meyer to that seat. Fred Meyer, a pretty well-known name in District 41.
Yeah, you held the seat before?
Held the seat before. When Tom Breezy became state treasurer, Fred Meyer filled his seat. And then Fred Meyer said, you know what? I am not running for that seat. So now this is the election that we're watching. And we're watching those numbers just updated as I started to look. Joe Johnson pulling ahead there.
That Pillen must have had him on speed dial knowing, he's the man to
call
in if
he called
needed.
Him in.
District 41 is one of about 2 special elections that we have here today that we're kind of watching. So with District 28, it's the normal re-election time, but this one in District 41 is a special election.
If you're noticing, it's all even-numbered districts that are up for election. Yep. 41's the only not even number. That's the special election we're watching. If you're curious where McCune's at now, he's in a diversion program. He's due back in court in August. Just waiting to see. And if you can see there, Joe Johnson, he's from rural Buffalo County, small business owner, former city admin for Nebraska City and David City, former assistant city admin for South Sioux City. Looks like he's got about 39% of the vote there. Another special election that we're watching, which we can break down later, is District 4, Nebraska Board of Regents. That was the seat that was held by Elizabeth O'Connor.
Unfortunately, we don't have the graphic for that one.
We sure don't. And it's not for a lack of trying.
No, it's not.
Danielle has been working on this all day.
But District 1 here, I think Comstock coming from behind. I think he was sitting maybe second or so when we first started this. So as numbers coming in.
Yeah, we've been watching these. We don't get special like behind the scenes information. We're getting these results in real time as you are as well. All of the people running for this seat are from Lincoln. Brett Comstock, founder and CEO of BCom, it's advertising and marketing firm. He's on the foundation for LPS. Dr. Jeremy Hosine, which was when he announced his candidacy, I referred to him as Mr. Hosine. He said, that's doctor. And that is my favorite memory of that press conference was him being like, I said doctor. And he was like, oh, I'm kidding. I said, no, you earned it. Like, if I got my doctorate.
Like, not everybody knows if you're.
So it's just like a core memory of mine. It was so funny. He's a chair of neurosurgery at Bryan Health and director of neurosciences at CHI St. Elizabeth. So Hosein is a registered Republican. Comstock, I believe, is a registered nonpartisan.
Okay. And in the State Board of Education is between 3 women. Still pretty close between the top 2 frontrunners.
Yeah, none of these have been called yet. We are watching State Board of Education District 5, Michaela Conway of Crete, Lana Dawes of Seward, Angie Ebersbacher of Beaver Crossing. They're trying to succeed, I said that correctly, the incumbent State Board of Ed member Kirk Penner of Aurora. He declined to seek re-election. He's been in that seat since 2021. This district is, if you're unfamiliar, is southeast Nebraska, Butler, Clay, Fillmore, Franklin, all of those counties. A little bit of Lancaster County, Seward
in there as well. And speaking of Lancaster County, we're looking for a new commissioner here.
We are, or are we? Incumbent Matt Schulte is pulling ahead there.
That's true.
76% with his challenger there.
And county assessor also up for grabs, but incumbent Dan Nolte kind of pulling away here a little bit.
We're looking. I promise that my computer is working.
Darsha did all the hard work to find their information. I did all of the buttons and things like that over here to try to make it visual for you.
Yeah, it's much better than listening to me just talk about these things, so we very much appreciate that. Yeah, that's going to be an interesting one to see. The incumbent looks like he's pulling ahead there a little bit. We're watching these numbers go up in real time. I don't remember what they were a minute ago when I looked, but here we are.
And public defender between 2 women incumbents.
Very close still.
Yeah,
very close.
This was close when the results first dropped. Still
close
there. Despite some of, unlike some of the other races that have been called for, like Pete Ricketts, Lynn Walls, some of those. So pretty close one here, only 1% difference. So this is another one that we're going to be keeping our eyes on here throughout the rest of the night.
Yeah, we're less than 15 minutes away now from this next set of results that are going to drop.
Incumbent is behind in this one. Kristen Anderson taking the lead in the district court clerk position for Lancaster County.
Yeah, watching those update slowly as those numbers come in. We do have AP numbers for some of these. Some of these are ones that are being hand entered, so
manually.
Patience with that. Thankfully, it is not me having to do it. It is someone who is better with numbers than me, and we appreciate that.
School bonds also on the ballot.
Gosh, this is an interesting one. School bonds are always
a tough one.
They're very interesting.
Mean well, but it's hard to especially want to fork up more money.
Yeah, we're at a time in Nebraska where we've talked a lot. We talked a lot about it in the last legislative session about property taxes. This is something that we talk about a lot in Nebraska. When you're asking Nebraskans to do something that might potentially raise their property taxes, not surprising that becomes a kind of a sticking point. It's interesting though. Both of these bond websites are very informative, so I did pull these numbers up. So Waverly, we're looking at Norris. Norris.
We'll do a short bit on this.
Let's do a short. I love to ramble. Norris, $34.8 million over 20 years. So here's the numbers. If your residential assessed land value was $350,000. Your annual impact, if this passed, would be about $333. That's around $28 a month. We'll skip ahead to the Waverly results. Waverly is a $64 million bond over 20 years. Same example, your residential assessed land value. If it was $350, your annual impact would be about $420 or roughly $35 a month.
Now, I know that you know a little bit about both of these, but
I know very little about many things.
Did they have a plan B, either of these schools, if this doesn't pass?
They do not have a plan B. There's no plan B, certainly for Waverly. They've come directly out.
They might have to raise the levy.
Said that they've talked about raising the levy a little bit. That is what determines how much money the district is going to get, how much is going to be collected and go to the district.
That involves TIOSA, right? Or
everybody's favorite acronym, TIOSA, which is something that was talked about in the last legislative session, and the one before that, and the one before that, and you could zoom in dramatically in my face, and the one before that. Property taxes, always something that we're going to be talking about.
Yeah.
in Nebraska. That is also the biggest point I think Governor Pillen made repeatedly was property taxes.
Yeah, and so maybe we take a quick break and then we'll do a breakdown of these bonds.
Love it.
Sounds good.
Love it.
So, that's a wrap on some results, a few results here, and some campaign finances. So we'll take a short break and then bring you the bond breakdown and some more results.
Yeah. Stay with us.
All right. Thanks so much for joining our live stream of election results here tonight. We're back with a little breakdown of the Waverly School District bond issue. Had to break out the quad boxes here.
Ooh, it's looking good. Danielle did a lot of work to make this look good. I did zero work to make this look good. So I am glad that somebody knows what they're doing. There's far too many buttons over there.
Even sometimes I don't even think I know what I'm doing. There's a lot.
And it works out.
Yeah.
Waverly School Bond, big ask, less big of an ask than the one that they asked for in 2024, which was $90 million. They cut that down to $64 million over 20 years. 4 focus areas for Waverly schools. As you can see the numbers there, my eyes are working, I think, against 58%, for 41%. These are unofficial. These races have not been called yet. We're less than 10 minutes from the next drop of election results. They're wanting to move offices to the front for security reasons, expand career and technical education opportunities, expand their HVAC systems, add early childhood classroom. At a time when we're talking about a lot of things like school shootings and swatting calls and bomb threats, having their offices at the front where there's secure entrances to the building is one that Superintendent Dr. Corey Worrell has talked about quite a bit. there's no plan B if it fails. So they don't know yet what happens next if they don't get to do these. Here is a little look at what your impact would be. So if your residential assessed land value was $350,000, your annual impact, if this bond were to pass, would be about $420. That's roughly $35 a month. Waverly is still paying on a couple of other bonds. Bond 2020, which confusingly was in 2015. That was security and technology upgrades. They have a little under $6.5 million left on that. Bond 2021B, which was in 2016. Also security and technology upgrades, a little more than $4 million left on that. And there was a 2024 bond for playgrounds at the intermediate school and Hamlow Elementary, plus some HVAC work at Eagle Elementary, a little less than $8 million left on that. There's also a $310,000 a year lease agreement through May of 2028.
So yeah, a lot that they're still working through. Threw up a graphic here of the main focus areas for Waverly's bond issue that they're trying to get passed here, moving the offices to the front interest in several buildings. Expand career and technology education opportunities, HVAC systems. Everybody needs that AC.
We're having issues here.
And add some early childhood classrooms. So far, it's looking like the voters are voting against this bond issue, but still, let's see.
Always a tough one when we're talking about things like school bonds in Nebraska, especially when we're talking about property taxes. This has been...
Yeah, it doesn't show how many percent of the votes are in for this, you know, kind of like some of the other races. That's what I was looking for. But for this, we don't have like, oh, there's only 25% of the vote in. So it could still fluctuate. But, you know, this one's maybe a little more up in the air. But so far, you know, the against is leading here.
And overwhelmingly, the high school takes the majority of that bond. That's about $47.8 million to go to the high school, $7.6 million to the middle school, the intermediate school, $174,000, Eagle Elementary, about $6.6 million. Hamlow Elementary, about $1.8 million. Again, only if that passes. No plan B. We don't know yet what Waverly is going to do if they don't get this.
Yes, and so this was supposed not $64 million right away. It would be over 20 years. So obviously that breaks things up a little bit, but.
Yeah, the district, believe the guidance that we have gotten in talking to them previously. Also, our Craig Allison on the mornings, he ran out this morning to talk to them, and they said, we have no plan B. We will have to look at other options. What those are, if that's levy raises, we don't know.
And so a lot of this, you know, to improve controlled access and safety to the school, but improve classrooms as well. And, of course, the auditorium, we already... the superintendent said no plan B, as we're just mentioning. So if voters do reject this measure, which it looks like they might, the district will have to look at some other options.
Yeah, getting close to that 9:15 mark here. We'll be getting another.
And this is after they were already told that the $90 million was too much, so they lowered the bond request by about $25 million after some community feedback. Saying that earlier proposal too costly, but it seems like the community still thinks it's too high of a price tag. But what was said we spoke to both superintendents. They said it's almost now or never, kind of, because the costs are only going to go up. I think
the cost, we talk about it all the time. The cost of everything is kind of going up right now. And that's what both superintendents have said. The cost is just going up. The cost is going up for construction, for labor, for all of these things. So Craig ran out this morning and just chatted with them a little bit. Dr. Corey Worrell told our Craig Allison this morning, well, we've tried taking out anything that might be perceived as a want, only put our needs into this bond issue. This will be the second time in roughly 2 years we're asking people to go to the polls for a bond. As you can see there, a little less than 60% of the vote against this Waverly school bond.
And so now we'll move on to the Norris School District.
Yeah, the Norris School bond, a little bit less there, and it's been a little bit longer since Norris has asked for this. The last time they asked for a bond, it was $10 million back in 2017. That did not pass. They're asking now for $34.8 million, so just shy of $35 million, again over 20 years. Some of the same things that Waverly is asking for. We're talking about security upgrades, technology upgrades. A big deal for Norris is their HVAC system has not been updated since the early 2000s. A lot of those appliances, they say, are reaching the end of their life. some of their buildings actually date back to the 1960s.
Yeah.
Even their bathrooms don't have updated original fixtures. We're talking showers, lockers, things like that.
And this also trying to improve ADA accessibility. So, I mean, it's not just that they want upgrades or to modernize things. The
high school quite literally has one ADA accessible bathroom that they've talked about. That is kind of a problem that they've said, which is why they're asking for this. And their superintendent, Dr. Derek Joel, has said that recently Norris has actually lowered their tax levy from about $1.15 in 2018 to just 75 cents last year. He said if this bond doesn't pass, which if you're looking at those numbers, kind of similar for Waverly, around 60% against. He said if they don't approve this, we may have to raise the levy. We'll look at those numbers again. If your residential assessed land value was $350,000 for the Norris bond, your annual impact would be about $333. That's about $28 a month.
And so another part of this would be changing the elementary entrance and adding a new traffic loop connected to Highway 68 for easier drop-off and pickup congestion. That was part of the
it kind of overlaps with their middle school drop-off and pickup area. And so the understanding that I have there is that there's a lot of congestion around there, and that they would need another entrance in order to make that happen. I believe the elementary school roof replacement is in there as well, and some new arts and vocational program improvements.
And here's kind of the breakdown of that. Over $4 million for the campus, several million for the elementary and middle and high school breakdowns for that, as well as how that money would kind of be divvied up if this proposal were to go through. But looking like the against is leading. So
I don't see an update yet. We're watching. We're watching.
We're watching you.
Again, if you're just joining us. Always watching.
But yes, throughout this night, we started here at about 8:10 or so, just breaking down some of those first initial results from the early voters. Now we're expecting the first batch of votes from today.
We're talking about votes that were cast between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. What day is it? I'm usually in bed by now.
You're telling me.
You're telling me. So again, we don't have any special hidden knowledge. We're not getting these numbers before you are. We're trying to provide the best context that we can as these numbers come out. So let's take a look here. What do we see? This is the first release of Election Day results. There will be another one at 10:15. They do have a third option at 11:15 if they need those. So we are watching those.
So we'll kind of do a little breakdown here as we're kind of waiting for these results. Another graphic that I had created. We'll kind of talk about a what's next here. Right now, so 40 plus offices up for elections statewide. During the break, Darsha also looked at some of the races that we have mentioned but don't have graphics for, one of those being District 4.
Correct. We are watching several districts that, of course, are not on your ballot if you're in Lancaster County. Let's take a look here and see if this is updated. One of the most expensive, if not the most expensive legislative race that we're looking at is District 4 in Omaha. That is currently held by Brad Von Gillern. As of right now, Von Gillern is behind his challenger, Cindy Maxwell Ostyek. She's got 52% of the vote. He has 48%. That has been extremely expensive. If I could keep even remotely organized. There we go.
There's a lot of papers.
There's too many papers. I'm still a paper person. That's just how it is.
And so 83 of 125 are heading to the general election.
Yeah, incredible.
Again, when it comes to partisan races, the leader advances in that one. Nonpartisan is top two. And
each party's leader.
Yes. And a general election is November 3rd of this year. So
so interesting to look at where we go from here. Here's a little look at Lancaster County, right? So they mailed almost 36,000 early ballots by Saturday the 9th. They had almost little over 27,000 of those back. That's the first drop that we got at 8. Now they're counting Election Day ballots. So the remaining early vote ballots that were received on Monday, that's yesterday, and today will be counted at 1 p.m. on Friday. This is in Lancaster County. All of the Election Day ballots, they started counting those after the poll closed today at 8. Provisional ballots will be counted at 1 p.m. That's next Wednesday, May 20th. Those election results are released immediately, and ballot canvassing with the State Board of Canvassers comes together to certify all those results. That is set statewide for June 8th.
Yeah, so here's the breakdown of that here before your very eyes.
Beautiful.
And then once again, here what we're expecting just here tonight yet. Obviously, 8 p.m. already gone and past. 9:15, we're kind of in that window right now. Some of those results have been called. We'll start from the top, but here in a moment. But 9:15, first release of today's votes. Some elections already been called, some still close, and we have a few people working on manually entering some of those results in. So we'll kind of start at the top here. I'll get ready to break down our latest batch and pull some things up, but we'll start statewide and kind of work our way down a little bit.
And it's worth mentioning that not only are we in an off year for elections, this is just a midterm. Voter turnout is expected to be low. Election Commissioner for Lancaster County, Todd Wilgen, said he's expecting like 29%. Right now, last updated 9:10 p.m. on the state's websites, this is statewide, we're at a little over 13%. Obviously, these are grossly unofficial results, but goes to show you just how low that voter turnout typically is. Danielle, take it away.
Here we are at the top of the ticket once again, if I can get my lower thirds to do what they need to do. There we go.
There's too many computer things happening.
We're trying to... Okay, so starting from the top, as we already know, Senator Pete Ricketts, the incumbent, has won the Republican side of this race. That race
called almost immediately after 8 o'clock.
Yeah, we had a couple of those races.
Also called Cindy Burbank on the Democrat side. If you're wondering why you've heard so much about independent Dan Osborne, but you're not seeing any results for Dan Osborne, that's because he's not on the primary ballot. He has to get enough signatures by the beginning of August to be on the general election ballot. There has been some discussion in the past few weeks if Brett Lindstrom would also be mounting a challenge as an independent for governor against Jim Pillen. Waiting to see on that. So
he previously tried to run for governor.
Did, and had dropped that bid earlier, so it'll be interesting to see how that pans out. So, some independents we're watching.
I wish maybe you can see it if I move it fast enough. Getting some Teams messages here too. If I can move this fast enough, you see votes in. There's about 62% votes in for this Senate race. Obviously, it doesn't really matter how many are in, considering Sydney has already been called. Only 35 in for the Republican one, but that race has also been called. So we'll move to the District 1, which has 56% of the votes in, but again, that one also been called.
Correct. Chris Backemeyer, former U.S. diplomat to the Middle East, facing off against Lincoln's Eric Moyer, works in the solar renewable energy. Had some support from the state party. Interesting race. Backemeyer had quite a bit of outreach, quite a bit of out fundraising. We're all getting Teams messages. You're watching things pop up on the screen. We're all trying to focus on what's happening. Again, we're getting these in real time. Moving on, hotly contested District 2 race. This was the seat vacated by Don Bacon. Bacon served 5 terms in that seat since 2016 when he announced he was not running for re-election. That threw, a lot of people in the race for that.
6 people in this race, only top 4 showing on this.
Hotly contested. It's getting national attention.
As District 2 usually does here. Kavanaugh, Denise Powell going head-to-head. This number hasn't changed since the first drop.
Yeah, we expected these to be close. Denise Powell outraised everyone else in this race, including Brinker Harding, who is running on the Republican side. He is running unchallenged on the Republican side, so whoever is called for this will be running against Brinker Harding. There is also a Libertarian candidate, Eric Foreman, who will be on that as well. He was the only one.
I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to press this button to see what happens. Oh, okay.
Whoa.
That's not what I was expecting, but...
and
it's showing the bottom. That's what the arrow's for.
See, we're learning, you're learning, we're learning. Lots of learning happening in there. That district known as the Blue Dot, it's a true swing district. So interesting to see how that's going to pan out. If you've been watching ads on either side, if you've been on social media, if you've stepped outside in the state of Nebraska, if you read the New York Times, if you read our colleagues over at the Nebraska Examiner, you will have known that this is a hotly, closely contested seat. There's a lot of ads from Powell's campaign saying that if Kavanaugh is elected, it would create a Republican supermajority. Kavanaugh has come out and said he believes that Democrats will be able to pick up enough seats to offset any Republican supermajority in the Nebraska unicameral, which is notably unpartisan.
And so now we'll move on.
Nonpartisan. I know how to speak English.
We'll move on to District 3 here. Finally been called for Adrian Smith. 27% of the votes in. We were a little
longer than we had expected there.
Yeah, the past couple of times that we've hit this graphic, it wasn't called for Adrian Smith, but you know, considering just how vast the western part of Nebraska is, maybe not too shocking, but
he's been in that seat since 2006. Tom Osborne gave up his seat to run for governor.
And as you know, there are no term limits when it comes to Congress, so he can just keep running and running.
Correct.
We'll move on to the governor seat, where, of course, there is
fascinating run there. Those have been called, and actually, if you bear with me for just a second, there has been a statement released by Lynn Waltz's campaign. The race was called almost immediately on the Democrat side for Lynn Waltz. She's from Fremont. She served terms in the legislature. Here is a quote we are reading. We just got in from the Waltz campaign. After months of traveling the state, I'm thrilled to continue this campaign to the general in November. We need a governor who will listen to Nebraskans and focus on getting our budget balanced and attracting good paying jobs. So as of right now, Lynn Waltz facing off against Jim Pillen, facing off. Whoa, I have so many notes right now. It is almost disgusting.
Yeah, and so we'll likely have those statements
facing off against either Rick Beard or James Charvant for the Legal Marijuana Now Party, which we do not have graphics for.
And so we'll have that full statement on our website, I'm sure, as we continue to update our election stories throughout the night and into tomorrow. And
the only way this happens is all the people that you don't see on that side of the screen that are updating results.
I could turn the camera, but
I don't think they'd be very
lots of swinging.
I don't think they'd be very happy if we did that. But there's a lot of people manually entering results. They're pulling these statements and getting them to us. So again, we are learning this all in real time.
And so again, there were 6 people within this. Here is because
super fascinating. J.C. Todd of York. That if that name sounds familiar to you, he was convicted of official misconduct in the medical marijuana petitions. That trial we covered pretty extensively. It was thought maybe he would pull out. He did not. He did ask. He is expected to appeal if he hasn't already, and is asking for a commuted what's the word I'm looking for? Thank you. From Attorney General Hilders.
And on the Democratic side, Lynn Walz, as we've mentioned, one of the first races to be called here since Lynn Walz had 92% of the votes in this one.
And we are looking, hang on.
Moving on to Secretary of State. This one is a close one that we've been keeping our eyes on. I don't think we've seen any changes here this time around, although Scott Peterson did overtake Bob Evnen within the last 30 minutes or so.
Yeah, kind of an interesting, wow, I am totally locked in here. Kind of an interesting thing, this Secretary of State's race, and we've talked about it a little bit. Bob Evnen has been in this role since 2019. Scott Peterson has been pretty active on social media, pretty outspoken guy. One of the things that he has kind of pushed a lot is this idea that Nebraska's elections, Bob Evnen isn't doing enough to secure them, which if you remember our coverage from a few weeks ago, I don't even remember when that was. Bob Evnen made this election integrity tour. I can type. We got to see him here in Lancaster County. He was with County Election Commissioner Todd Wilgen and Todd Wilgen's deputy. They looked at all of these machines. They walked us through them. We got to see them operate. It was quite interesting to watch. You don't usually get that kind of access. But Peterson has repeatedly said, these ballot counting machines could be hacked because they can access the internet. They cannot access the internet. That is what we've been told. That is what we've watched. They have to actually upload the results to a flash drive that gets uploaded to a computer. To do all of that, Peterson has pushed back against mail-in voting and early voting, wanting full hand counting of all races, things that Wilchin and Evnen have both said cost-wise and employment personnel-wise would just simply not be feasible.
And so still up for grabs who's going to win the Republican part
very
of
close,
the Secretary of State race, but Democratic side already been called for Sarah Slattery.
Not even close on the Democratic side. Sarah Slattery of Plattsmouth. I can speak and read. Super great.
And then we'll move on to the state legislature, District 28. Patty Pansing Brooks already been called for this one. I think this is new that she's been called. I don't think
it was not called last time. She was pretty far ahead, but this is a new call. This was Jane Raybold's seat. We have talked a lot about Jane Raybold, especially this week. She brought LB 258, which undid some voter-approved minimum wage increases that happened. It was one of the first things that happened in this second legislative session. Received a lot of pushback from that. So if you remember in 2022, more than, I think it was 58% of Nebraska voters and almost 70% locally here in Lincoln had said, yes, we want to raise the minimum wage incrementally to $15 an hour by 2026 and tie any future increases to the cost of living. Raybold's bill, which was passed 3316, I believe, undid that. It actually caps those increases at 1.75% and also undid and reduced the minimum wage for minors.
Although the
city of Lincoln tried to reverse that and as of now appears successful. There was an opinion by Attorney General Mike Hilders, a very long opinion that basically said you cannot do this. This is not going to be something that survives, and it's going to raise the cost of other things around the state. It's going to cause competition between markets. James Michael Bowers is the Lincoln councilman that brought that. That passed 6-1. We'll be waiting to see if there's any legal challenges out of that.
Yeah, and so we'll move on to District 41. That's been pretty popular as of late. Still no one decided for that one, but I'll just for the sake of going to quad boxes because I want to.
You know what? You built them. We should use them. You know what they say? Build them and they will use them.
Sure.
That's not what they say. This is one of two special elections that we're following this. Dan McCune of Amherst resigned at the beginning of the legislative session this past year. He was accused of inappropriately touching and making jokes to a female staffer at the Sign Ye Die party the previous spring. He was cited by the Nebraska State Patrol in October for public indecency that later turned into a disturbing the peace charge. That's a misdemeanor, pretty minimal. I don't even think he would have been able to serve jail time for that. So he originally pleaded no contest. If you're not familiar with what no contest is, it means I'm not admitting guilt, but I'm admitting that you have enough that you could convict me of this. So he changed his plea to not guilty later. About less than a week into the session, he resigned. And right now, he is in a diversion program. He's due back in court in August. Governor Pillen had appointed Fred Meyer to fill that seat. Not Fred Meyer's first time being appointed to fill District 41.
Fred Meyer, he's in place once again. He held that seat before McEwen, and
that was when Tom Breezy became state treasurer.
Yeah, and so Meyer been on the back burner. Pillen just called him up, said, it's time for you to check in here, bud.
And he said, I am not running for that seat. So they have three running that race. Again, hasn't been called.
For that
leading right now, Joe Johnson of rural Buffalo County, small business owner, former city administrator.
Yeah, in that one. And so then we'll kind of get into the Board of Regents.
She doesn't have to press buttons, so that's...
Board of Regents here.
Yeah, interesting Board of Regents seat race. Looking at I don't see a yellow check mark there. So that race has not been called. That's District 1, the Board of Regents seat here in Lincoln. That seat was held since 2009 by Tom Clare. He decided not to seek re-election, so we have Brett Comstock and Jeremy Hosine, both of Lincoln. You have Roland Nance there. Also of Lincoln, we don't have much information on him. Comstock, advertising marketing firm founder. He's the CEO of that.
Yeah.
Dr. Hosine, a neurosurgeon, division chair of neurosurgery at Bryan Health, and director of neurosciences at CHI St. Elizabeth. That race not called. Looks like Comstock. What is that number, Danielle? Is that a 5-7?
57% of the vote.
Whoa, I need
12,393. Jeremy Hosine has 7,000, so he's got about a 5,000, nearly 5,000 vote lead.
Yeah.
Math.
Pretty significant. There is another drop coming at 10:15. We will not be on the air for that. All of this obviously will be on our website.
It'll come down during our
in the middle of the 10 p.m.
show.
Yeah.
So they'll have those results for you on there. But State Board of Education District 5 between 3 women. I think it's been going back and forth between Conway and Eberspacher.
Miss Angie, if you are watching, I am so sorry.
Yeah, you can we'll do an interview with you, and you can teach us how to say your name.
That seat was formerly held by Kirk Penner of Aurora. He had that seat since 2021.
She's
did not seek
re-election. 1,000 vote lead here, so maybe starting to pull away a little bit. We don't have percent of the votes in for that one, like some of the other ones. So this one,
Eberspacher, she's from Beaver Crossing, ag coordinator, dual bachelor's degrees, elected to the ESU 6 board from 05 to 09, is a registered Republican. Michaela Conway of Crete, she's on the Crete's Board of Education. She's a business systems manager. She's a registered Democrat. Again, huge shout out to our friends over at the Nebraska Examiner who helped put together some of the most comprehensive voter guides, along with ours. If you're chugging along there, the polls have been closed for about an hour and a half. But if you're curious, the work that went into getting those, please make sure you check out our website. That'll continue to be updated. I promise I'll stop hitting my face on this microphone.
Oh, I was going to try to zoom this in, but something got messed up when I was trying to click out of the Teams message. But we'll just, you just got to...
Yeah, I'm curious, though. We've been watching a couple of special races, and we haven't talked about the other one. So if I can pull this up, the other race that we're looking at is University of Nebraska Board of Regents District 4. Now, that was the seat that was previously held by Elizabeth O'Connor. She resigned effective January 9th. O'Connor, charged with DUI causing serious bodily injury. She got behind the wheel allegedly in May back in Omaha's Benson neighborhood and hit a vehicle head on. Her blood alcohol content 4 times the legal limit, according to those court docs. Officers noted she had bloodshot, watery eyes. I was actually in Omaha on October 3rd. There was a Board of Regents meeting, and there was 3 young girls in the vehicle that O'Connor allegedly hit. The father of those 3 girls said she needed to resign. He questioned whether she got preferential treatment. She had been removed from her position with the Douglas County Attorney's Office. She is due back in court this Friday, so May 15th. We'll be watching that. We had talked with Omaha Senator Kathleen Kauth back in December, and Kauth said, this is unacceptable. Said, I will file articles of impeachment if she doesn't resign. Kauth did file those articles of impeachment twice, I believe, and ultimately withdrew those once O'Connor resigned. So there's a handful of people running for that. Right now in the lead, according to the Secretary of State's website, Suzanne Shore, a name that might sound familiar to you, a registered Democrat, the wife of Republican Senator Pete Ricketts. She's leading at 35% of the vote. That's about 6,200 votes, a little less than 6,300 votes. The next closest is Justin Solomon with about 24%. We'll be waiting to see how that pans out.
Again, O'Connor's, this is part of a special election for the NU Board of Regents. That's one of 2 special elections that we're kind of closely watching. Again, that second one is in District 41 with Senator Dan McEwen's seat.
Yeah, O'Connor, if she is convicted on this DUI, serious bodily injury, that's a Class 3A felony. Her max 3 years, $10,000 fine. She did plead not guilty last August. We'll be waiting to see how that goes. Yeah, Governor Pillen had appointed former Husker player Joel Makovecka to fill that seat because it was kind of late when this happened. There was a ton that had to be done in the unicameral this year, if you remember. Makovecka said, I am not going to be worrying about this campaign. There's been enough upheaval. I would rather focus on doing what's right for the Board of Regents, and so he did not seek election to that seat.
And so we had already covered State Board of Education. We'll skip over to the Lancaster County races here just to kind of get through those. Incumbent leading for the commissioner position in District 3. County assessor, incumbent also leading in that one. Public defender, it's a closer race for the incumbent.
That is even closer than it was last time we looked. Christy Egger and Sarah Newell, both Democrats, in this race. I cannot read those numbers, but
8,695 for Egger and 8,519 for Newell. So
yeah, the clerk's race, the public defender's race, and the register of deeds, the assessor's race, these are all Democrat on Democrat races. The District 3 commissioner is 2 Republicans running against each other, Matt Schulte, Dave Weeding, which we just talked about, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so then for the clerk position, incumbent is actually behind in this race, and it looks like Kristen Anderson.
So she's got a little bit more than she did the last time that we looked. She was the chief deputy treasurer for Lancaster County. Simon Rezak is currently the Lancaster County jury commissioner. Yeah.
And going into the school bonds now, Norris, it hasn't been looking good here for
I don't
Norris
remember where we were at previously, but I got to say the spread looks about where it was. We've talked a lot about school bonds in the last little bit. Again, just to recap briefly, Norris, $34.8 million over 20 years. The last time they tried this was $10 million back in 2017. That was also a no. Their superintendent, Dr. Derek Joel, if this doesn't pass, they may have to raise the levy, which he says they've lowered in the last few years, so that'll be interesting to see. We're also watching one up in Waverly. That's a little bit bigger. That's $64 million over 20 years, down $25 million from what they tried a couple years ago, which was pretty expensive. They reduced it for that. Their superintendent, Dr. Corey Royal, has said if this doesn't pass, they don't have a plan B. Both of these kind of focusing on HVAC security upgrades.
Yeah. And so with this primary election, a couple bond issues, but later in the general election, we could probably expect some ballot issues coming up. I think there's been petitions circulating for getting sports betting approved out there in Nebraska. I think I've seen a few petitioners out trying to get some signatures for that one to allow mobile sports betting, because you can bet on sports, but you have to go to the casino to place your bet.
Yeah, you can't do it. There was an interesting story, and I want to say it was in the Flatwater Free Press. I just simply don't remember where there's a bridge, between Nebraska and Iowa, where people actually pull off to the side of the road to place their sports bets, which is just
and I think
fascinating to me.
That was one of the talking points that the petitioners had, is that Nebraska is losing millions of dollars to Iowa because Iowa has the ability for mobile sports betting and makes it easier. And so some Nebraskans trying to get that one passed and get that in front of the voters, likely in November. Another kind of write-in or, someone gathering signatures
they have
right now.
July 2nd to file for those initiative petitions.
And someone else trying to gather signatures is Dan Osborne, trying to get on that ticket for the Senate race against Pete Ricketts.
Yeah, if you've been looking at your Facebook, your social media, and you're like, why is Dan Osborne not on any of these? Independents have to get enough signatures. I believe the date to do that is August 3rd. It is to be on the general election ballot.
Yeah.
He's not the only one that may be mounting a race. There's been some rumbling if Brett Lindstrom would be running as an independent for governor. No official word on that yet, but again, they have to get all of these signatures by the beginning of August in order to be on the ballot. So that's why he is not on there yet. You can check out their campaign finances. We have some breakdowns on our website to look at those. And as we're doing that, we're just kind of pulling through some of the statewide elections here.
I'll get ready to talk about what's next as we kind of, 9:45. We're gonna try to
there. Winding her down.
Yeah, winding down here as they're getting ready for the 10 o'clock show, where they'll have another batch of results come through at about 10:15. But to kind of give you a better look at the timeline of things, we do have a schedule that we've kind of been talking about throughout this.
Yes, we
we'll
have.
Murgy here. The results. So obviously 8 passed, 9:15 passed, 10:15. Next one up, second release of votes from today. So over 27,000 early votes already been counted because those were submitted before May 9th, and the Election Commission was able to count all of those up. Now they've been counting day of ballots, and expecting the second release to happen around 10:15 tonight.
Yep. The remaining early vote ballots that were received Monday and today, those will be counted at 1 p.m. on Friday. The provisional ballots get counted at 1 p.m. the following Wednesday, which is May 20th. And then the State Board of Canvassers meets June 8th to take a look at that. Again, to recap, partisan races, the top person in each party goes to the general. In nonpartisan races, it is the top two, regardless of what quote-unquote party you're in. So November is going to be interesting regardless. If you're looking at races or you're Googling results and you're trying to see, well, why doesn't the AP have George Dungan in District 26? Well, there's only two people in that race. So both of those people are going to advance regardless of what happens.
Yeah, and so, November will be here before you know it. On Monday, so gosh, that was just yesterday.
Whoa.
What day of the week is it? Just yesterday, I talked to the Better Business Bureau about election-related scams when it comes to voter registration. Obviously, it was a little too late to register to vote for this election, but now it's time to get registered to vote for the general election if you are not registered. Things to watch out for when it comes to fake surveys and polls, because it's a great way for candidates to get some information about what constituents are thinking about, but you got to be careful about what's coming through your email, text messages, things like that when it comes to those those fake voter surveys and polls, things like that. Be cautious of who you're donating to, whether it's actually to that candidate or not. So some things like that. I have that full interview with Josh Planos from the Better Business Bureau on the 1011 Now website. That's also where you can find results from today when those continue to come down, including that second release of votes from today, those vote results from today that you can find on our website. And as you can see, there's a scroll continuing to kind of go and show races that have been called, close races that we are still following. District 2 for the U.S. House of Representatives.
That's going to be an interesting one. We know it is. We just know it is. I'm going to try and pull it up here. Let's see.
Lancaster County Public Defender. We have that one that we're watching.
We're pulling District 2.
Were those the only two?
I believe those were the last two that we were waiting on.
Oh, and Secretary of State
has not been called.
Oh, and that one just updated. So
let's take a look. That's been a close one. Bob Evans been in that seat since 2019. He faced a couple of challengers in 2022. The challengers he faced in 2022 were both ran on this kind of promise or this understanding, this belief that Donald Trump had lost the election because of voter fraud.
Yeah, and now
Evans fended off both of those challengers, but it looks like Scott Peterson's still leading.
Yeah, pulling away a little bit. I feel like it was closer the last time that we had checked.
Yeah, and if you've our friends over at the Nebraska Examiner have done some incredible work on these races. One of the most interesting things to look at is Bob Evans made this statewide campaign tour. Statewide election integrity tour, where he looked at voting machines in some of these counties. We get to meet with him when he was here in Lancaster County, take a look at these voting machines.
So again, close in the Republican side of the race for Secretary of State, but already been called on the Democratic side. There's been several races that have already been called. I don't think there's been really any other sort of upsets that we've seen, anything like that.
We're still looking at the District 2 race, John Kavanaugh and Denise Powell still within a couple percentage points of each other.
In that one.
Adrian Smith's race in CD3, that's been called.
Yeah, I don't think this District 2-1 has updated since we've kind of been chatting throughout.
Yeah, and Chris
afternoon,
Bachmeyer called for the Democratic side in CD1. Mike Flood running as the incumbent and the Republican. No challenger in that one, so it will be Mike Flood v. Chris Bachmeyer in November. I was trying to pull up some election dates for you. November 3rd, obviously, is the election. First day for early voting will be October 5th. My eyes are awake. I'm usually have been asleep for almost an hour by now.
So again, those closer races that we're watching here, District 2, that we will keep you updated on in our 10 o'clock show.
Correct.
And of course, on 10/11 this morning, we will keep you updated on who's winning on that one.
October 23rd at 6 p.m., the last day for in-person voter registration. So if you're not registered to vote, primaries are already a low voter turnout. I think Todd Wilgen in Lancaster County said he was expecting less than 30%. Statewide, if we look at the number right now, we're about 15% voter turnout. So,
Secretary of State,
gotta get out the vote.
Republican side again, one that we'll be watching and giving you updates on, whether that's on social media, in our shows, things like that as well. And then the public defender.
I'm taking a look. It doesn't look like, I don't think this it has not been called yet.
That one?
For the legal marijuana now side, when we're talking about the Senate seat, it looks like Mike Marvin's got about 68% of the vote, compared to Earl Starkey about 32%. Again, in partisan races, it's the top candidate from each party. So were it to be called right now, you would have Mike Marvin of Legal Marijuana Now versus Cindy Burbank on the Democratic side versus Pete Ricketts.
And so let's see.
So again, we are getting these as you are getting these. We have no special look ahead. So we of course are trying to understand and provide context on all of these. And again, we're less than 10 minutes from our 10 p.m. show. Madison Pitch, Nathan Brennan will be breaking down and looking at some of these as they come in, because we will go off the air before then.
Yes, and so we wanted to, this is our article on 1011 Now showing the results and live coverage. This is where you can go for updates here throughout the rest of this week, so you can see who's kind of winning and getting some updates on that. But we have a registered voter count here that we thought was pretty interesting that we added. You know, it's fun when we can add graphics and things like that. So let's see if I can kind of zoom in so you guys can see that.
I find that fascinating, and perhaps that's just me, but I think that's pretty interesting.
And you, on Thursday, have plans with Ian Mason to talk about more of these results. So tell us a little bit about that. A little bit about that.
We're going to do, I will not take credit for this. This was all Ian. Pizza and Primary, we're going to be breaking down all your election results. Again, if you've been listening, we know some of these are not going to be counted in time. We're not going to have every single vote total perfect numbers, but all of these races should be reasonably well understood by then. We'll take a look at those. We'll take a look at the candidates. We'll take a look at what's coming up. We'll have more information on when you have to register to vote by. Very, very interesting to see what that's going to look like. Ian had some great graphics built. Shout out to Heath for building those. We're excited to see.
Yes, and so that's only one of several things that we have on the docket. I know, goodness. We should have done some out brown cows before.
I know. You're like warming up.
We were already warm.
It was very warm. Yeah, goodness, we had some AC issues, so thankfully we figured that out. Again, all of these races are going to continue to be updated. The next drop is 10:15. If they need a third drop, that comes at 11:15. All of this is going to be updated on our website, of course. When you tune in for your morning show, you're going to be looking at Megan Conway and Craig Allison and Chanel Taylor McCarthy, and they're going to be breaking down all of these results for you. If you're tuning in at 10, which I hope you are, because if you're here watching us, you're going to love watching Nathan and Madison at 10 look at these. So make sure you stay around for that. And of course, if you're watching us online and you don't have our app downloaded on Roku, it's a lot.
You're missing out because
easier to
it's
watch there.
free. And who doesn't like free stuff? I mean, haven't you seen our
love
commercial?
free stuff.
It's free.
It's free.
Right?
It's free. I'm attempting to stay in the frame here. You can tell I don't sit over here very often, and Danielle is the front. So thank you for making my day extremely easy in that I didn't have to build any of these amazing graphics that you're looking at. And shout out to our digital team for all the work that they're doing getting these votes updated on our website as
We've been live throughout tonight for the past 2 hours or so on our website and app, of course, but on Facebook and TikTok as well. Haven't seen any questions come through.
No
more so
questions.
just comments,
it's a
people
pretty
talking to each other.
Straightforward.
Yeah.
I think that the interesting one, we're still waiting on CD2 to be called, but the other interesting one we're watching, obviously, Secretary of State.
Do we have anything? Let's check. Do we have anything for Gage County that we can share? Someone was asking about that.
While you're looking for that, we did get a statement from Mike Flood. Mike Flood, CD1. He will be facing off against Chris Backemeyer. Flood was unopposed in this, but his campaign sent a statement. Quote, while Washington is gridlocked, I'm getting things done, passing bipartisan legislation to lower housing costs, supporting the largest tax cut in American history, and delivering more than $100 million in federal funding back to Nebraska. He's, quote, looking forward once again to earning the trust of Nebraskans this November. So, again, Mike Flood ran unopposed on the Republican side. He will face off against Democrat Chris Backemeyer in November for that seat in CD1.
Let's see. Can I find
what
I'm looking for?
I already forgot what we were looking for.
I'm trying to find if there's anything on the Gage County Sheriff.
I have not pulled anything. While you're doing that, I'm just going to keep talking. We're looking at statewide results. District 4, which is one of the most expensive races for the unicameral. That was incumbent Brad Von Gillern. That race has not been called. Right now, Von Gillern is trailing his challenger, Cindy Maxwell Ostjak. Cindy Maxwell Ostjak, 52% right now. Brad Von Gillern, 48%. We're going to scroll down to some of the other races that you might be looking at that we may have mentioned briefly. Like when we were talking about campaign finance, we were talking about a Republican supermajority, and one of the Republicans in that race, Merv Reapy of Ralston, that's District 12. Right now, he is leading 41%. He has 2 challengers on the ballot plus a write-in. The write-in, Robin Richards, had outdone him in fundraising. Merv Reapy was kind of that deciding vote that prevented some of the more controversial transgender-related bills that came out from Omaha Senator Kathleen Kauth in the last session. He was the kind of the no vote on that. It ended up having LB 89, which is the Stand With Women Act, that came out. Senator Kauth brought her transgender bathroom-related bill and a couple of medical-related bills in this session. But Merv Reapy is kind of that swing vote. You don't really know where he's going to land on a lot of things. So that's another one that we're watching.
It doesn't seem to have any results pop up for Gage County just yet, but we will have that information on our website.
Yep,
I haven't seen anything when it comes to the Douglas County Sheriff either.
Seward's Jana Hughes looks like she is leading District 24, 74%. George Dungan, District 26 in Lincoln, looks like he's leading 74%. District 28, which was Jane Raybold's seat, Patty Pansing Brooks appears to be leading 80% in that seat. District 30, which was Myron Dorn of Adams, Callie Ideas leading 52% to Janet Box 48%. Again, none of these have been officially called. Rick Holdcoft of Bellevue is an interesting one. He's faced kind of an expensive race here. His challenger, Darren Tompkins, is outperforming him right now, 56% to 44%. That'll be one that we keep watching. And then we've been talking a lot about Dan McCune seat, District 41. It has not been called yet, but Joe Johnson is still leading 43%.
Yeah, so a lot of election results here tonight. We focus primarily on Lancaster County because that's what we've had available to us, but you can check out our website, and we, in our morning shows and throughout the rest of this week, we'll be sure to update you on the Douglas County Sheriff. I know some people were asking about that on Facebook, as well as results in Gage County, so we will get those to you. We just unfortunately can't find them right now in this time, but we're going to wrap up here so we can get ready.
The fun doesn't end because 10 o'clock is coming, and that means Madison Pitch and Nathan Brennan, so make sure that you've downloaded your app and you're watching.
Yes, and stay tuned for all of the updates. But for now, for myself, Danielle Shenk, and for Darsha Dodge, we will be wrapping up here. And so stay tuned. And from our newsroom to wherever you are, we'll see you on the next stream.
Thanks.
1011 News is everywhere. Download our smart TV apps and follow us on social media at 1011 News.